The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
So on our Thursday Dialogue today, we're focusing on the 2 weeks of the Madlanga Commission. What have we learned from the testimonies of KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and the National Police Commissioner Fani Masemula? What were they able to back up with evidence? What were they not able to back up with evidence? And what more evidence can we expect to back up some of what they've said? So I've invited Orrin Singh, who is our reporter with Eyewitness News. I've invited Karyn Maughan as well, who's a journalist with News 24, just to take us through, because maybe there are some aspects that you may have missed that they think are quite crucial and will be crucial as the chairperson of this commission, Justice Madlanga, writes his final report at the end of this commission. So if you've got some questions, maybe you've got some inputs yourself, you want to tell us what it is that has stood out for you, you're welcome to give us a call on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Orrin, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Clem.
All right. We'll also be joined by Karyn Maughan at some point. I'll bring her on in a moment. Orrin, let's just start broadly by reflecting on the commission before we get into the nitty-gritties. How do you feel about what has been revealed and what the commissioners there and the evidence leaders have been able to question or not question?
I think it's been underwhelming, Clement. If I have to give my personal opinions here, I might be out of a job. But
well, I agree with you. So I may be out of a job too.
I think it's been underwhelming so far. We expected maybe more explosive testimony from Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi when he took the hot seat last week for 3 days. But much of what he said, he was talking to what he spoke to in July, not giving us much more. I think really we saw possibly where this commission is going this week when Fani Masemula was testifying, and he started speaking about Babita Deokaran.
Yeah.
And he was just cut off by Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga on that point, not probed, not letting him finish, because he was speaking about Vusi Musi Cat Matlala.
Yeah.
And then going into the Babita Deokaran issue, and we're hoping to hear, everyone's ears pricked up, and we're hoping to hear, is he going to make the link between Vusi Musi and Babita?
Yeah.
Is he going to give us something we haven't heard? And it's just cut right there. So that was quite disappointing for us. But then the other issue, the presidency issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear that this private entity company, Richards Bay Minerals, has got a task team, and Mkhwanazi alleging that the Special Task Force and the NIU are deployed there. These are serious units within SAPS that are responsible for serious operations, deployed to essentially safeguard a private company.
While there's crime that's spiraling out of control in the same area where that mining company is.
Rampant crime. I'm from that area, Northern KZN, and I know the issues in Dondota. I know the issues in Kwamo-Nambi, and it's just not Richards Bay itself. And they were never, Masemula was never pressed on that. Was the instruction given to you by the presidency to redeploy members to Richards Bay Minerals after recalling them?
Yeah.
It's something that we expected, especially the commission chair, Justice Madlanga, to press him on.
Yeah.
And he was never asked those questions.
Oh, yeah, that was quite disappointing. I must say myself as well, I'm disappointed with how there are certain things that are not being asked. It's like they say these statements and then, okay, we let it go. But I do think if we probe further, we've got the opportunity here to understand more who are the actors that are involved here. Karyn Maughan, let me bring you in here. Just broadly, we'll get into the nitty-gritties in a moment. Broadly, your impressions of the Madlanga Commission so far, from what we've been able to hear and what's been able to be challenged by the evidence leaders. What's your view?
I think that, it's such an incredible mythology that I think so many South Africans.
Oh, it's
so long.
Yeah, Karyn, I think let's do this. We're going to put you back now to the producers, and maybe we can get you on the line because we are losing you there. So the sound is not as clear as I would have loved for it to be. So we'll bring back Karyn in a moment. So Orrin, let's get into some of the issues. Let's pick up maybe on what you've just mentioned now. There's this mining company in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal. what do we understand about what General Fani Masemola has said? Because this unit was withdrawn from this mining company. Someone from the presidency calls and says, no, that's not going to work. Do we even know who that person is?
We don't, Clement, and I think that's the answers we wanted to get or achieve an understanding of who issued this instruction. Was it the presidency spokesperson?
Yeah.
Was it someone from the president's office directly? Someone that maybe answers directly to President Cyril Ramaphosa? Or what actually happened? But in terms of the backstory, what we know is that Richards Bay Minerals had a series of murders that related to their operations. In 2021, Nico Swart, their general manager, was killed in Merensia in Richards Bay. He shot in a hail of bullets in his vehicle, in his driveway, essentially, and killed. And so, following Nico Swart's murder, there's a series of more murders that take place within the grander scheme of the operations of Richards Bay Minerals. So, Gwede Mantashe, who is the Minister of Mineral Resources at the time, meets with SAPS and says, look, we need to look around what's going on regarding Richards Bay Minerals. And a decision is taken to form a sort of, I wouldn't say task team, but a team of detectives to go down to Richards Bay to try and crack this case. Who are behind these murders and what's going on? And after a year, they don't achieve much successes. Mkunazi says it's wasteful expenditure. I'm recalling these detectives back to Durban. They can continue with their investigations from provincial head office, but to have them down in Richards Bay for over a year without any successes, it's wasting money. And as soon as he does that, he gets a call from Fani Masemola to say, look, you've recalled these detectives, but I've just got a call from the presidency saying, why is this the case? Send those detectives back down to Richards Bay. So, I mean, direct political influence on policing operations and matters. And we don't get answers. Who issued the instruction? Who called him? Did the former Minister of Mineral Resources, Gwede Mantashe, or the current Minister, Gwede Mantashe, speak to someone within the presidency, get them to issue the instruction? Where did the call come from?
Why?
And why?
And why did they do that? Yeah. Karyn, we've got you back on the line now. You were giving an overview just quickly on your assessment of the Madlanga Commission so far.
Well, I just wanted to get onto the last point that was raised by your guest. And, that's particularly awkward in light of what happened in Marikana with the instruction around concomitant action taken against minors. So, at that stage, the Ramaphosa was not in a presidential position, but there were severe questions raised about the use, that language in that email and the impact that it had on this incendiary position in this mine. And as you rightly point out, we don't have a sense. I mean, Masemola sort of brings it in right at the end of his tail end of evidence and says, there was nothing exceptional about it. And as long as these guys were there to solve crime, it was fine. But I think, this idea of, and it's been a theme that's come out again and again, this idea that the PKTT was somehow a force that was there to protect Becky Cele. That was a language that was, a base allegation that hasn't been substantiated or something that was said. But this idea that in a political elite, which we know spends disproportionate huge amounts of money on their own protection, is somehow potentially involved in indicating that police must go to crime-riddled areas, not because of the protection of citizens, but because of mining interests, I think it's a bit harsh for the average South African to address. But I mean, this is again the issue is that we are at the beginning of a process. I think that, there is a real deep desire for ordinary people to understand why we have the level of police dysfunctionality and a seeming sense that justice is not done in the vast majority of cases, that we are at the mercy of criminals. But really the question is going to be, is that a consequence of a kind of political concerted project, as we've seen with multiple commissions to disband the Scorpions, to remove Vusi Piccoli from office, this concerted idea not to address the real issues that came out from Marikana, and is it a consequence of incompetence, malice, or malicious incompetence? And I think that's really where, this commission is going to have to go.
Orrin Singh, there are questions around whether or not the president will be called to testify. This is not the first time this issue of mining interests where the presidency gets mentioned. I was listening to Major General Petronella van Rooyen, who spoke about the PKTT and how it fell outside the minister's authority. But the minister had told Parliament that I discussed this thing with the president, and the president said, okay, cool. So they were aligned with the president about this. Even Fani Masemola said, I went to the president to make him aware of what Senzo Mchunu was trying to do. Do we know if the president will actually be asked to come and testify?
It's unclear yet, Clement, as much as we'd love to see President Ramaphosa appear before the Madlanga Commission to answer some of these allegations that have been put forth. I don't think we're likely to see it. We know that the ad hoc committee has made mention that he might be part of a new set of witnesses that is expected to testify. So that'll be interesting to see if he appears before Parliament and what he's actually willing to disclose around this. Senzo Mchunu, Fani Masemola alleges that Senzo Mchunu had a conversation with the president, and the president seemed to agree for the disclosure of, or the disbandment of this task team. But whether that's the case or not, we will have to hear from the president himself. I think the point that Major General van Rooyen, who's currently testifying, is making, that even if the president did agree with it, it wasn't a political decision for an operational task team, which falls within the mandate of a national police commissioner, for them to actually take that decision and issue that instruction.
So Karyn, I think that maybe what we're going to get more at the commission is when Dumisani Khumalo appears, because as Orrin said earlier, a lot of what Fani Masemola, or even largely what General Mkhwanazi have revealed, is what he had revealed, most of it at that press briefing. So there hasn't really been more details. For instance, I've been looking forward to hearing about the drug cartels, the drug cartel that involves the judges, the judiciary, the prosecutors, etc. That really hasn't come out more clearly. Are we expecting Dumisani Khumalo to be the guy that brings in all the evidence and all the explosive information that most people have been waiting for to, of course, substantiate on what has been alleged?
Well, I mean, that's an important legal question, because we know, Clement, that crime intelligence officials typically do not testify, precisely because they are in the role of intelligence gathering. And intelligence is not the same as evidence. You can have suspicions about things, but can you prove it in a court of law? No, you can't. One of the most jarring moments for me, and I mean, was when it came out that Masemola, I think since January this year, had gone with Khumalo to the police minister and said, we believe that, the deputy national commissioner of this country, who is responsible for detection, who is responsible for forensic services, who is responsible for crime intelligence, is associated with organized criminals, is quote unquote friends with Kat Matlala. And, there was an initial investigation done, which apparently said, look, there needs to be a further criminal investigation, but he's cleared. But even now that, he wasn't raised as a basis for his suspension. But, the fact that you haven't been able to resolve that, surely that speaks to a level of dysfunctionality within the police that is absolutely unacceptable. For you as a national commissioner to come and say, by the way, we think that one of our lead guys is friends with a gangster, but we've done nothing about it. We're not even suspending him on that charge, I don't think is acceptable. So, I think that there may be a degree to which, there is this, these big claims that have been made about criminal complicity, which will need to be tested. And of course, all those people, Mchunu, Sabir, all of them are going to be able to cross-examine these guys, in stage 2 of these proceedings, or stage 3, sorry. But I think that, it is deeply concerning that, senior members of the police effectively believe that their institution is rotten to the core, but there are no cases currently in court to prove that, except for obviously the prosecutions of Kat Matlala, Katiso Molefe, etc. And I think there have to be real question marks over that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 21 minutes now after 11 o'clock. We're going to continue this conversation as we unpack what we have heard from the National Police Commissioner, in the KZN Police Commissioner at the Madlanga Commission. What questions do you have? What inputs do you have? What picture has emerged for you over the last 2 weeks when these two individuals have testified before the commission? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
24 minutes after 11 o'clock, Orrin Singh, our reporter with Eyewitness News, and Karyn, who's a journalist at News 24, with us this hour as we unpack what we have seen and witnessed so far at the Madlanga Commission, particularly the testimonies of the KZN Police Commissioner Ntantla Mkhwanazi and the National Police Commissioner Fanny Masemola. Orrin, I think one of the things that have become clearer here is that, Shadrack Sibiya is sort of on the firing line here, for lack of a better phrase. He's one person that's been linked to these business people here in Gauteng. I mean, Fanny Masemola says at some point people referred to him as Masemola's deputy because he knew so much. So he's got a lot to answer then about all these friendships, quote unquote, that he has with these, quote unquote, compromised business people.
I definitely think so, but I think Shadrack Sibiya himself as well will want to see the evidence if he hasn't been furnished with it as well. We heard the National Police Commissioner say that when they arrested Kat, they managed to get hold of his phone, and through his phone, getting messages that linked him to Sibiya, linked him to Bra Mokgotsi, and in turn linking this Kat Matlala to Senzo Mkunu. But I mean, we haven't seen evidence, Clement, and I think that's a point that Karyn herself and the other journalists at the commission, we've been discussing to length about where's the evidence and when are the media going to get a chance to actually go through some of the annexures, the hundreds and hundreds of pages that both the National Police Commissioner and Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi had in front of them when testifying.
So this is of the communication between Kat Matlala and all these other individuals.
Exactly.
He was in jail.
Exactly. We need to see that. We need to see the WhatsApp messages that have gone to and fro. And I'm sure Sibiya himself will want proof of that. But he has a lot to answer to. So does anyone whose name has been thrown out here at this commission. They've got a lot to speak to. The allegations are up in the air at the moment. People have to come and defend themselves and counter argue as to the claims that are being put forward. But it's interesting, some of the stuff that even the National Police Commissioner alluded to, saying that these two detectives from counterintelligence in Gauteng that were investigating the cartels, be it Vusi Musi, Kat Matlala, or Katiso Molefe, they had at some stage been told by a senior officer in police that he's got an envelope for them, he's got an envelope for the magistrate, and he's got an envelope for the prosecutor. Who is that senior officer? Why didn't Fanny Masemola tell us? If you're alluding to Shadrack Sibiya, can you not say his name? Who's the senior officer you're referring to? I think that's the one thing we're wanting to possibly see. Names. Who's the officers? Who's the prosecutor? Who's the magistrate? What are you talking to here?
Yeah, that's very tricky because, Karyn, when you remember what General Mkhwanazi said on that July 6th press briefing was that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the judiciary basically is compromised because they are now implicated in this criminal syndicate of sorts. Do we actually know the evidence, right? Picking up from what Orrin says, from what we have seen at the commission so far, has there been evidence of a judiciary, for instance, that is compromised beyond just what Fanny Masemola says they were told about this prosecutor or even the judge that's going to receive this envelope?
Absolutely not. And that's the problem. And it very much came through in Mkhwanazi's evidence that the sort of objects of his unhappiness were actually magistrates who had granted bail conditions that he was unhappy about for his colleague, head of crime intelligence, Dumisani Khumalo. And so it was like, oh no, that because they have a bail condition that says you are not allowed to go to the crime intelligence officers, that is a restriction on them being able to take on these alleged gangsters, and that is an improper attempt by the judiciary to interfere. Bail conditions, the bail condition was essentially said, you are implicated in appointing a manifestly unqualified 29-year-old BMW employee to a senior position in crime intelligence with no apparent security vetting, no police experience, allegedly, according to the IDAC, which of course have also been accused by Mkhwanazi of being implicated in this criminal scheme with no evidence again. that this was somehow, the kind of machinery of a syndicate. Now, that's an immensely serious thing to say. The IDAC cases, on the face of them, appear to be strong. All the accused in that case, Clement, have the ability, as we have seen numerous times before, to bring, if an improper decision to prosecute has been made, to challenge it in a court of law. They have not done so. They are currently seeking an amendment of their bail conditions in the magistrate's court. Before a magistrate who now knows that if things don't go his way, or their way, or he makes a decision that they're unhappy about, he has the real potential of being dragged as being potentially complicit in a criminal syndicate in a public, fully broadcast inquiry. And I mean, that is untenable. The State Capture Commission had its issues, but we never saw a scenario in which ongoing criminal investigations, another one against a climate challenge official, he and his colleagues accused, this is the CFO, accused of involvement in a cover-up of his crime intelligence laptop, firearm, and cell phone by a sex worker, who is then tracked down by the police. Those items are recovered, and the entire thing is concealed. That is not a serious case. Again, the option of review is open. Yeah. So to go before an inquiry and to say these cases by the IDAC, which is put in place, are HR matters, that was the one argument that was made, that they do not have a basis, is highly problematic, particularly when you consider that the IDAC has confirmed in May this year that they are investigating Kat Matlala over that police tender, when it was in fact, according to Masemola, the IDAC who phoned him before that tender was awarded and said, this is dodgy, don't do it. And it is Masemola who goes ahead with the contract and then sits on an audit report for 103 days,
which led to
by Mkhunu,
which led to about 50 million rand even being paid because he took so long to act.
And you know what's so fascinating is, of course, on the day he acts is what? The exact day that they get those phone records between Kat Matlala and Brian Mkhotsi. So let's look at the timing. And he's not asked about that. Of course, when Mkhunu gets his chance to, he's got to explain why, in the name of everything that is sacred, would you have disbanded the political killings task team, a power that you clearly did not have? I mean, this commission is going to wrestle with that. We've heard that argument going back and forth with Van Rooyen as we speak. He's going to have to answer to that. Sabir is going to have to answer why he disobeyed and did not report to the National Commission and demanded those dockets. And why were they sat on? Why did nothing happen with him? All of those things will need to be explained. But is there currently evidence of a massive syndicated, criminal conspiracy? I don't think so. And what I particularly find problematic is that this suggestion by Mkhwanazi that anyone who questions crime intelligence or himself or criticizes what they've done or how they've done it with the military uniforms or whatever are somehow being bought by criminals. Yeah,
I mean, there are some people that are saying Diane Collar Barnett now must recuse herself from the parliamentary inquiry, which Julius Malema was telling them, you guys are being ridiculous. Just because her name got mentioned there, now you are telling her that she has to recuse herself. But what was the basis of that? And what are you really following here as a parliamentary committee? I want us to talk more about this 300 million rand contract, because I think there are a lot of people that are avoiding accountability here that must face some tough questions, including Fanima Semola. That and also this issue of the BMW employee, because it looks like that is central really to this fight that we're seeing between these top cops. All of that coming up after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
22 minutes before 12 o'clock, we've got Orrin Singh from Eyewitness News, Karyn Maughan from News 24, and we've just been unpacking what's come out of the Madlanga Commission so far. And I want you to call us on 011-883-0702 if you have something that piqued your interest or something that you still need clarified or something you were hoping would be clarified at the commission. You can join the conversation by calling us on 011-883-0702, or sending us a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702. Orrin, was the National Police Commissioner really asked about the 300 million rand contract that Ket Matlala received? Did the commissioners get into that at all?
I don't think they got into it as much as they could have, Clement. I think he did speak to it. Obviously, he gave the backstory about it, reading from a prepared statement. And I think they just skimmed over it a bit. Obviously, this 360 million rand contract that Cat had received, he listed the companies that Cat was using, Medicare 24 Tshwane District. But I mean, a lot of what he was talking to, we already know. And kudos to Jeff Wicks for his investigations into this from News 24. But we knew all of these things. I mean, Jeff had even reported on the blue lights that Brigadier Mkonazi at EMPD 2 years ago, February 2023. Yeah. And it's coming out now, and they're rehashing things that a lot of work that has gone in by investigative journalists. So I think he didn't speak to it at length, but the one thing he did say was that Senzo Mqunu raised the flag on the contract. Something that Jeff had reported on as well previously in his investigations. But it's important to note that while in many instances he was painting this picture of Mqunu, he didn't directly come out and say, kudos to the minister. The commissioners had to actually push him a little bit for him to say, kudos to the minister. He did a good job by raising the flag and asking us to probe this tender a little bit more and look into it. And that's when we uncovered, gross misconduct in the awarding of this tender, and we had to go back and actually cancel it.
Yeah. And Karyn, for me, what is concerning for me is that you don't want to just take what Fani Masemola comes and says, and then we looked at this contract when Senzo Mqunu raised it, because then he will want to somehow take credit for, a decision was taken that let's stop this tender. But we have got to ask some critical questions around why? Why was this even allowed? Because the audit report came and raised some flags and some issues that should have been picked up already by the SAPS. And even when there was a report from that audit committee, Fani Masemola didn't act on it. He waited over 100 days before he could act, which meant that there was monies that then were paid even to this company. How is the commission going to make sure, for instance, that matter comes through and there can be accountability on the part of the National Police Commissioner? Or is that what's going to happen now when Shadrack Sibia comes, or when the police minister comes to try and demonstrate why Fani Masemola shouldn't paint himself here in a positive light?
Yeah, and I mean, it gets worse because when Jeff Wicks published that story on the 20th of December, which immediately 4 days later results in the minister then having this meeting and saying there needs to be an audit, he went into incredible detail showing why it was unlawful and why there was fronting. All the things that this Fani Masemola raises. I don't know how much of what we're hearing is actually from these guys' genuine intelligence and how much of it is from Jeff Wicks. I really don't know. I mean, let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. Because, as you said, the blue lights, all of that stuff, there's no indication that there were independent investigations into that.
They haven't said anything.
That was all in-depth stuff from a journalist. And again, I say to you, what are ordinary members of the public supposed to see? Or think when that's the consequence? And, these allegations are made of rampant criminality and money being offered, but no charges are laid. No one is charged for that. There's no criminal prosecutions pending. And instead, it's this amorphous thing of these terrible people are basically decimating our legal system. But, we haven't brought a single one of them to trial. And by the way, we also say that IDAC, which is supposed to be the institution which is supposed to deal with state capture and serious corruption and criminality, is also compromised. But we're not going to reveal any evidence about why. And Clement, I can honestly say that my grave concern is that while it is clear that there's very strong evidence of political interference here, there are some real questions for Mqunu, Sibia, Masemola, all of these guys to answer. My fear is that if this commission turns around and says, look, we can say that, there were some serious red flags raised about X, Y, or Z, but we can't say, for instance, that IDAC was influenced by criminals or the Inspector General of Intelligence when he was investigating massive alleged property purchases by crime intelligence, that was driven by criminal syndicates. or Diane Kohler Barnard, where she reacts to press reports and issues a statement about those same property purchases. She was being, we can't say that she was being controlled by a criminal syndicate, and we vindicate all those people. Is there going to be then pushback of, oh no, the commission has also been compromised by the syndicate? And that's what genuinely concerns me, because any legitimate exercise of authority or power is never immune to questioning.
Absolutely.
Is never immune to proper accountability for that upon which it bases its judgment. And my apprehension and my anxiety about the way that this entire thing is being responded to, and the narrative that has been driven, particularly on social media, and the backlash that many of us have faced for raising simple questions about the evidence that underpins these very serious accusations, is deeply concerning about its implications for rule of law, our democracy itself, and the principles of open, transparent justice.
Yeah, absolutely, Karyn. Maughan. Orrin, I want to ask you now about, because there was a lot of debate. In fact, even on the show, we debated this, what Fani Masemola said about Senzo Mchunu and whether or not he allowed Senzo Mchunu to pressure him to end up implementing this unlawful, quote unquote, instruction. From what you saw when he was being pushed on that, because Madlanga did try to ask, but what happens when someone who is in a position of authority, who shouldn't be involved in operational matters, gives you an unlawful instruction? Would you do that? And he mentioned that, well, yeah, but you must know that it's going to be career limiting. What did he do himself? What did he try to do when Senzo Mchunu gave him this quote unquote unlawful instruction? And did he end up agreeing to implement it, albeit in a phased approach?
It's so interesting, Clement, because two dates pop into my mind from Fani Masemola's testimony: the 6th of March, 2025, and the 27th of March. He lists a series of dates building up to this instruction, and that once the instruction is given for the disbandment of this team.
Yeah.
But those two dates are important because he says on these dates, on the 6th of March, police top management were in Cape Town. They had just attended the portfolio committee on police the day before, on the 5th. And on the 6th, they in this meeting to discuss the disbandment. Now, he approaches it from a winding down of the unit. Okay. All right. That's the phase that he had approached it. And at this meeting on the 6th, there is no decision. So Masemola alleges that there's no decision taken as to what we're meant to do with this unit. They take a decision that the dockets allegedly should be taken back to the station of origin. Mm-hmm. So those 121 dockets that have been the focal points of this discussion, a decision is taken there that they must be taken back to the station of origin. They then meet again on the 27th. And bearing in mind that Masemola alleges Mchunu is in these meetings, driving these meetings. And so is Mchunu's chief of staff, Cedric Ngabinde. And they are unable to come to a solution as to what are we doing with this unit? When's a specific date that this unit must be disbanded or winded down or whatever the decision needs to be taken? And nothing comes on it. So two dates that they sit to discuss these matters, nothing comes of it. So Masemola is painting a picture that Mchunu was neither here nor there with his disbandment instruction. He wasn't sort of interested in driving a conversation and getting to the finalization of this unit. But I think it's also important to note that he suggests that Mchunu was up in the air with this whole thing, that he was being influenced by someone. This is what Masemola is saying. It's not coming from Mchunu, and we want to know who influenced him. But they don't give any sort of indication. They sort of allude to, could it possibly be his chief of staff, Cedric Nkabinde, that was whispering in his ear? But they don't actually provide us with anything solid.
What happened to the dockets? Because they had to be returned now. Who took the decision? Was it Fani Masemola who said, okay, bring back the dockets now that the decision has been taken to disband the political killings task team? How did they end up coming to head office?
And this is the thing that we're unclear about, Clement, because they say in these two meetings that Masemola initially says the decision was taken for the dockets to be transferred back to the station of origin. These will be mainly stations in KwaZulu-Natal, given the work by the political killings task team. But when he's asked by Justice Madlanga, was that a decision taken by everyone, put down on paper, and a decisive decision that this is what is meant to happen, he says, nah, it was kind of up in the air. It wasn't really a decisive decision taken by everyone in the meeting. And so essentially what happens is Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya so claims Masemola takes the unlawful decision to instruct that those dockets be transferred to police headquarters in Pretoria. And that was not within his scope of work. He was not meant to take that decision. He also suggests that Sibiya was communicating directly with Mkunu and bypassing his reporting line in terms of reporting directly to him and going straight to the minister. But then again, all these people still have to come and testify at the commission. So we're going to hear counter arguments. And the one thing I'm also worried about this turning into a he said, she said sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, he's saying his point, I'm defending and countering it, but then where do we actually find the middle ground here?
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping that Dumisani Khumalo is going to somehow bring in a lot of stuff, because they keep on referencing him that, yeah, maybe he can come. Unless, of course, his evidence is going to be in camera. But otherwise, I'm really placing my hopes on Dumisani Khumalo to give us more information. I really want to know, who are the judges that are compromised? Right? I really want to know, who are the judges that these envelopes were meant for? Because those people shouldn't be in the system. They haven't been mentioned so far. And what really has driven even the top cops to thinking that there are some judges that are involved in these criminal networks? We need to find those. And whether they testify in camera or not, I hope that other police cops, top cops that are coming, will be able to provide that level of information. Orrin Singh, let me thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Thanks to Karyn Maughan as well, who is a journalist with News 24. After the break, I go to your calls now. Malungelo, Tommy, I'll start with you. You can call us on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. 10 minutes before 12.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
7 minutes before 12 o'clock. Let's start with you, Malungelo in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Good morning. You're talking to me?
Yes, Malungelo. Go ahead, brother.
Yes. Oh, thanks, Clement. So, Clement, I just want to raise an issue here that, the whole separation of duties between the ministers and their director generals, in this case, Minister of Police is got a commissioner who is an operational guy who is a DG for all intents and purposes. So what I want to raise is that this issue is much more systemic than we all think, because similar to the Minister of Police, you've got other ministers of other departments who are also overreaching in terms of the work of the directors general. You get me? Because the two functions are quite different, where the minister looks at the policy, look at the strategy, and then you've got the DG that looks at operations.
Yeah.
So this issue is much more systemic than we think. So I think with the addressing of the issue of the police department, I think we also need to highlight, what similar issues are happening in other departments.
Absolutely. And Malungelo, that's been clear to everybody, right? It's been clear to everybody that a minister or even a president shouldn't be getting themselves involved in operational matters of the SAPS. The National Police Commissioner knows that himself. The minister knows that himself. My goodness, even the president knows that. So, I don't know, maybe one of them forgot. Maybe Senzo Mkhuni forgot when he issued that instruction. But I'm not convinced. And I can't wait to hear how he's going to be answering that question. Why did he issue an instruction that is unlawful? He himself knows he can't be getting involved in operational matters like that. Why did he get involved? On whose interest was he acting? And did he tell the president? Is it as he told Parliament? The president agreed, they were aligned. Is that really the case? And why? What was the basis of his decision that this task team must be disbanded? Because surely you must have a report of sorts that shows you that, hey, this thing is not worth it. But in this case, the report that that has been spoken about is that there have been successes of this political killing task team. So why would you disband it then, if it's managed to really get to the crux of some of the cases that were just collecting dust? Tommy, you're calling from Roodepoort. What are your thoughts? Good morning.
Hi, morning, Clement.
Sure.
Yes, after listening to the witnesses, my opinion is that there is definitely a turf war going on. Cases which would normally be handled by the Hawks, which would be severe, not severe, but which would normally be handled by the Hawks, will be diverted to the PKTT, and General Sibia, in whose department these investigations would be happening, was then cut out because a unit underneath him, crime intelligence, was then used because there are specific rules governing crime intelligence to divert resources. And when I say resources, I mean your intelligence was given to the PKTT, very good intelligence, and they worked on it, and they probably cracked cases that way. He might have been feeling that Mkhwanazi is an adversary of his, both wanting to become national commissioners or something like that.
Or Hawks
was
heads.
being given preference so that he comes out as the blue-eyed boy of the police, That's what upsets him here. And the other question to ask, the PKTT itself, is it a permanent structure or a temporary structure? If it is a temporary structure in terms of the police, the minister can say, look, our policy is that we've got a permanent structure called the DPCI, the Hawks. These cases were supposed to have been investigated by them in the first place, but people were in a clandestine manner creating a situation where the PKTT is needed. It goes to Fort Hare.
Yeah, no, got it, Tommy. And those will be clarified as well, I suppose, when the head of that political killing stars team, Dumisani Kumalo, also appears. It's 2 minutes now before 12.